and someone comes out the back door and says, "Hey, security, there's someone that's shirtless harassing the guests out front. Can you please take care of it for us?" And I'm like, "What?" And I see the guy walking towards me, and he has a red suitcase. He's just walking around shirtless. And I'm like, "Hey, sir, you can't be here. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." And he's like, "Oh, you think you're like a cop? Oh, you think you're just a security guard? What do you think? Who do you think you are?" While he's doing that, he reaches into his backpack and then he pulled out a machete, like a full length machete. And I'm just like, not even flinching. I'm just like, whatever. And he's like, ooh, it's like, "I'll cut you, man." And he like tried to rush at me, like try to make me flinch, and I didn't do anything. And then he put on his jacket and then he like went back the way he came. Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the DP Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Pinto, and joining me today is the same guest I had last week, my friend Elisha.
How's it going?
What's up, bro?
Nothing much. Chilling.
So something that happened last week when we did the podcast that we ended up not talking about because we were going pretty deep into the DMT conversation was my job. And where we work, because in our area, there's not to mention it, but there's a lot of homeless people, and in that area,
a lot, yeah.
And in that area, they're very aggressive. I've noticed.
Yeah, that's kind of putting it mildly. There's like an incident several times a day, which is saying something. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're just seeing that in just where you work, because it's like in a big plaza area, then imagine how everybody else has to deal with it, right?
Yeah, there's like little villages wherever you go now. It's kind of scary. Yeah.
But like something that happened while I was working 2 weeks ago, I believe. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. And funny enough, your dad was there with his coworker, and he witnessed what happened. So I guess I'll just tell the story. So I was just working, so for those who are listening and don't know, I'm actually working as a security guard right now. And sometimes you have to deal with a lot of the time you have to deal with homeless people. And a lot of them are not right in the head. A lot of them they're just people that are just mentally unstable from their drug addiction or something. Because that's what I believe I see a lot of. Because a lot of people seem very like they have a psychosis or something. They're just talking to themselves. Yeah. Dementia. They seem like I'm trying to attack them when I'm just like, hey, trying to be peaceful and not do anything, but they're already on the offense. But anyways, so about 2 weeks ago, I'm just it's after my lunch, right after my lunch, and I come to like the usual spot, which is next to where you work,
right?
And I'm just chilling right there because usually later in the day, what I see a lot of is homeless people. So I just ask them, please leave the property, blah blah blah, shoo them away. And next behind me is like a restaurant, and someone comes out the back door and says, "Hey, security, there's someone that's shirtless harassing the guests out front. Can you please take care of it for us?" And I'm like, "What? Okay, I'll see what's up." And I just look out the side of where my golf cart is because I use a golf cart to patrol the area. I just look out to the left and I see the guy walking towards me, and he has a red suitcase. He's just walking around shirtless. And I see him. I'm like, "Hey, sir, you can't be here. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." And he's like, "Oh, you think you're like a cop? Oh, you think you're just a security guard? What do you think? Who do you think you are?" And I'm just like, "What?" And then he's like, while he's doing that, he reaches into his backpack and he's like trying to pull out something. I'm not sure. It looked like it was a sweater, but then he like put it back and then he pulled out a machete, like a full length machete. And like I looked at your dad and his coworker, who I didn't know was your dad at the time, and I'm just like, "Oh," we both look at each other like, "Oh," and I'm just like not even flinching. I'm just like, whatever. And then I look at him and then he puts the machete back and he's like, "Ooh, it's like, I'll cut you, man." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I didn't say anything. I just like sat there and I was just like calling his bluff. I didn't say anything. I just kept staring at him. And then he pulled out his jacket and he like tried to rush at me, like try to make me flinch, and I didn't do anything. And then he put on his jacket, and then he like went back the way he came, and he was just like, yeah, and he was like mumbling things.
Honestly, I feel like you dodged a bullet there. That could have gotten ugly. You know, crazy people with machetes. It's woof.
Yeah, by the time he would have pulled it out, I was thinking about tackling him, but I was like, oh, this guy's bluffing. Like,
Yeah, you never know. I mean, even in the tussle, you could have just like gotten scraped or something. Who knows, right? It's,
yeah. And what did your dad say about it? What was it from his perspective? Because I
was
told
weird,
you about it. Wait. So let's preface this. So I tell you about this,
right.
and then I say that, hey, that guy you were talking to was he was there, and you told me he was your dad, and I'm like, dude, did he tell you about it? And apparently not.
Right, which surprised me. I was like, why wouldn't he tell me? And I asked him. He's like, oh, I didn't want to spook you. And I was like, what? But I work there. Come on, you gotta fill me in.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, like your friend was really unfazed. The security guard, like he didn't react. He was calm and just like stood his ground. And the other guy didn't pull it out of the backpack all the way and everything. So it was like, very, very odd situation. But it could have definitely gone downhill. So I'm glad nothing escalated. You know.
And just to preface this, I was actually high throughout the whole thing.
Which, yeah, maybe is why you probably didn't react so...
Yeah, that's why I was like super chill. I was like, yo, I'm one with the Force, man. Like, I'm a Jedi. I was like, I got this, guys. No, I was really just very calm about it. I was like, I'm calling his bluff. I'm like, I don't think he's going to do it. I'm like, there's cameras everywhere. If he tries anything, he's screwed.
I'm sure that threw him off. He was probably like, oh, this guy's not scared. I just pulled a machete. What? Oh, my God, this guy must be nuts. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, and he said, like, I remember him saying, like, oh, you have a taser? You have a gun? Like, so I think he thought I could have been armed in, like, or had something in my golf cart.
You should
which I
have.
didn't.
Yeah, but you should have. We talked about this. You definitely.
Yeah,
now
you
you
started
are.
telling me. No, but we're not at that point. So then last Friday, also same thing after my lunch. Right after my lunch, I'm driving by with my golf cart through like the northern end, and I see this homeless guy crossing, and I'm like, man, he looks like trouble. Like he just seems off. Like I just felt the vibe, you know. I just felt that you know, he was off. I don't know.
Like,
it's
let
just
me keep an eye on
sixth
this
sense because
guy.
I don't believe in like spirits or ghosts or anything, but I do think there's like energies that people put out, and you can feel that, you know.
For sure. Yeah, I agree.
And so then I just kept doing my patrol because he was still across the street, so I can't do anything about him, right? And then as I'm turning back to park out north on my other northern spot where I usually spot, which is like just my usual spot where I'm there most of the day, because I'm supposed to make sure people aren't parking there that aren't supposed to be, and just keeping an eye out. And then I get radio calls for homeless people or whatever it may be. But I see him, and then I start following him because I'm like, okay, it seems like he's leaving, so I'm not gonna say anything. I'm just gonna keep watching him, you know,
Right.
because unless he starts going into the area where there's shops or people, because you know now people are outside eating, so I'm like, okay, he's staying on the streets, and then he ends up going across to one of the shops, not to specify what it was, and he sits down on one of the chairs outside where people were waiting. And I like get out, I like park the golf cart, and then I get out, and he's like, hey, and he's like pouring his like drink that he has. It looked like coconut water or something. He was like dropping it. I'm like, dang, this is bougie homeless guy. But he's spilling all of it, and then I just look at him, and he's like saying, oh, go away, and then he throws it at me, and he's like, oh, go away, like I don't want you here. And I'm like, hey sir, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave, you can't be here. And then he rushes at me.
Oh no.
And he pushes me, and then I like fall back, and I like use my hands and stop my fall
Nice.
using the back of the or the hood of the car in front of me. It was like a white car. And then I look back at him, and he's like, oh, are you okay? Like he immediately felt like guilty about what he did. And that's what kind of to preference all of this is all these people are still people. And I think that's why the guy with the machete didn't do it, because he's like, okay, I'm going to be like really screwed if I do this.
Yeah, in broad daylight in front of a grocery store. What do you...
Yeah, exactly. And you know what's funny? I called just to go back to that story, after that happened, I called the property manager and said, hey, there was a guy with a machete. Maybe keep an eye on him. He threatened me. And they didn't call the police or anything. They didn't do anything about it. They were just like, okay. But
Yeah,
anyways,
that's a red flag.
going back to that story, he pushes me, and then he's like apologizing, and I'm like, hey, it's okay. And he's like, I'm like, you have to leave though. He's like, well, we're going to need to get my face mask. He's like, can you get it for me? I was like, no, you have to grab it. I can't get it for you. And then he gets the face mask, and then he's leaving, and I'm following him out because I'm like, I can't leave him alone. So he's walking, and he goes to a bus stop, And I'm like, all right, bye. And then I start leaving, and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, whoa, like he rushes at me again, and starts saying he's sorry. And then he gets in front of me. He's like, oh, my name's I think he said Mark. I forgot what his name was exactly. And he puts his hand out to shake my hand, and I shake his hand, and then he gets down on one knee, and he's like, I'm sorry. And he kisses my hand, and I'm like, oh, it's okay, man, don't worry, like, I'm okay, you're okay, just get some help, like, don't worry.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. Yeah. And the property manager called the police because she saw it, and she's like, I have everything on tape, right?
The proposal or the the machete attack? Like him kissing your hand?
No, well, everything, even him kissing, because there's cameras there too.
Oh
so she has all of it, but she said that after I had gotten hit, because she came outside, and sorry I didn't preference that, but I was more focused on the homeless man. This is a different
guy. I forgot this is a totally different guy from the machete guy.
Totally different guy.
What the hell? Crazy.
And so then I was like, that's the end of it. And then I just go and I park in my usual spot next to your spot because it's the end of the day. And the guard or the police, I see the police come by, and then I have to go and flag them down. And they're like, oh, and like the property manager tells them like, oh yeah, I was attacked, blah blah. And then I tell them the rest of the story, starting from I was like, because they're like, oh, park next to us, and they're like, hey, and I'm like, hi, and then I'm like, we're staring at each other for a second, like me and the police, and I'm like, so what did she tell you? Is what I say to them, and then they're like, oh, well, she told us that you were attacked by a homeless person, and I'm like, yeah, I was, and I'm like, so do you want me to just go on from where she left off? She's like, yeah, sure. And then I'm like, okay, well, he apologized, and then like he kissed my hand, told him the whole story, and he said, wow, that was a turn of events. And then they said, okay, like we'll go look for him, and then they left. And they didn't ask for a description. They didn't ask for the tapes of what happened. The cops didn't ask for anything. They were just like, oh, okay, crazy story. All right, peace.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, I went home and I bought a taser and a pepper spray because I was like, yo.
Good call.
Mm-hmm. So then that brings us to today, which is like another homeless situation, and this was a regular. I'd seen him before come through, and same time he always reacts the same way. But I got to work a little early, and then I'm like with my backpack, like grabbing my things because I have like water and lunch or food or like something to eat for breakfast, like granola bar or whatever. And then I see him and I'm like, I guess I'll go deal with him now, before I clock in, and I'm like, hey, you have to leave. And he's like, oh, get away from me. I have a bottle. I'll break it over you. And he didn't have a bottle. He kept reaching over to his, he had a shopping cart. He kept reaching over to it to be like, oh, I have a bottle. I'm going to hit you with it. And at this point, I have my pepper spray and my taser because it came in from Amazon. And so like I reach into my pocket to like have it ready, the pepper spray, in case he did charge at me. But he's just, keeps like doing, fake threats like, oh, I'm going to do something, get away from me. And then he gets angry and he gets his shopping cart and he pushes it into a freaking Mercedes or Chrysler convertible.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And leaves a dent in front of the right passenger tire. Yeah. Like it caved in, and I left a little note saying like what happened and at what time, in case like, cause there should be security camera footage in case, you want to put it for insurance and be like, hey, this is what happened. Look, it's like, it's not my fault.
Yeah, that was a good call. Yeah. But holy shit, it sucks for that person.
Yeah, but then I took pictures of what happened, sent it to the property manager, and also like took a video of him. And he tried to like charge at me like the same way, and I was like, whatever. And then he left, and I was like, okay, cool. So that was like,
I wonder if insurance covers homeless attacks.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I mean, I've had to deal with like more normal homeless people that, well, I guess normal, like there's this one guy that comes a lot, and he'll be like drawing. He got like I don't know where he got it, maybe a homeless shelter, but he got like a nice like binders and like drawing kit, or maybe he found it and stole it, but he's got like nice stuff now. He used to just have a shopping cart with a bunch of random shit in it, but now he has that. And so I see him like writing like just one line on like this paper, right? And I'm like, hey man, you gotta get going. He's like, all right, no problem, boss. I'll leave right now. Hey, are we on the Crystal Palace, or are we in Earth? And I was like, we're on Earth. And he's like, oh, okay, because it's really hard right now to tell the difference. And I'm like, okay, bro. And so then I'm like, well, you gotta get going. He's like, okay, no problem. We'll get out of your hair. He's super nice, and like, and so he ripped up his papers and like put them away, right? And put them underneath like some bushes, actually behind where you work.
Wow.
And so I ended up wanting to like look at what he wrote.
Right.
So I kind of pulled some of the papers like later in the day because I was bored. I was like, let me see what he wrote. And he wrote like Multiverse Citadel, like, and just like the
Fool was
same
on
exact
one.
line, just on the top line. That's it, on like 5 different papers.
Huh.
And I was just like, all right, man, this dude was really stoned. And I saw his in his backpack, he had a big glass crack pipe.
Oh, I wouldn't say stolen. That
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
yeah.
but he's like, you meet those types of homeless where they're like in the in between, where they're a lot more reasonable.
Right, but you can tell they're all
Yeah.
on one. Like,
And you get some that like don't even say anything, and then they just keep walking. You know,
yeah,
you get, like once they see you, they just keep walking.
yeah, like skittery folk too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this, and it's a little tough sometimes though, bro. Because like for example, there's this homeless lady that I had to deal with recently this week, who keeps going into like the bakery,
Mhm.
the one that like the Asian lady is at, and it's
Right.
like and this homeless woman will just like sit in there for hours or like go up there, and
And
I
they
like
just
don't
let
know
her?
that she's inside, and they let her, and I guess they feed her and stuff, which is why she keeps coming back.
Yeah.
But the issue is like I see her and then like just like scout like scurrying around like the property, and I'm like, hey, you have to leave, you can't be here, you know.
Mhm.
And so she's like throws a fit, and she tells me like, oh, I'm gonna call the police, you're harassing me. And I'm like, okay, call the police. I'm like, call them. And she's like, oh no, and like, you know, she ends up leaving. But
Right.
like the fact that and I actually talked to the manager of the property, and she said, hey, she's okay, she's no problem. And I said, okay, well, if do you need my number in case she comes again, you need her to leave? And she's like, oh no, it's okay. So I'm like, well, you know, what do I do in this situation? Like you're allowed to serve them and you have them, but at the same time, my property manager does not want that there.
Yeah. It's a rough all around. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there's
what
a lot
what
of
are you
stuff.
supposed to do with these people? Like for the cops if they come, right? Like, what are they supposed to do?
Hmm.
It's tough.
Even for the damages of the car that got hurt, it's like, what, you're gonna sue the homeless dude?
Right.
It's like, I'll take it for all his recyclables.
No. Yeah, there's no good way to solve that, I feel like. Yeah.
Hmm.
Mm.
But I mean, hey, it's been like within this month now that things have opened up. Now the homeless people are more aggressive. Back with like when there was more of a shutdown, I didn't see as much.
Really? That's interesting. Maybe they're like trying to get out and about now that more people are around. I don't know.
Trying to like maybe scavenge.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe
Mhm.
it's just more homeless people are around in general. I don't know.
Hmm. But bro, it was your birthday, Valentine's Day. What ended up happening, bro?
Nothing much. I tried to go out with a few friends, but everywhere we went, it was the 5 of us, and that's apparently too many people. The limit is supposed to be 6, but everywhere we went, they're just like, no, sorry, we can't see 5. And
Everywhere
then,
where in like Santa Monica, Venice?
no, within like Encino, Sherman Oaks, Canoga Park area.
Really?
Yeah.
That's surprising. They wouldn't
Yeah.
serve a party of 5.
Exactly. Yeah, and
And it was all outdoors, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's so weird. Why is that?
I I don't know. Probably because they could tell we didn't all live together. Like, because they ask you, right? They're like, "Do you guys all live in the same household?"
Really?
Yeah. And on the first one, we fucked up, and we were like, "No," and they were like, "Okay, I guess we're canceling these." So, and we learned from that one. We were like, "Oh shit, okay, so I guess we all live together now." And we went to the next place, and they were just like, "No, we can't seat you. I'm sorry." And the one place that would have seated us was Cheesecake Factory, but the wait was like an hour and a half. And I was like,
Jesus.
oh,
But
yeah,
it's pretty good food though.
yeah. But I was just like, ah, no, fuck it, let's
Cheesecake's
go. We ended up going to In and Out, and there was no line.
What?
There's
On
always
Valentine's Day?
right. There's always a line. Like,
That's
Oh.
kind of a shitty date. Like you got to be a fat fuck. Dude.
I was just like, fuck it, I haven't been in and out in a few months, and there's always a line. Like the last like 10 times I've gone, there's been a line like down the block, and there were 2 cars. So I was like, fuck, it's perfect. It's just meant to be. In and out it is. And then like the next day, I ended up actually like doing something with a few friends.
What'd you get? What'd you
Yeah.
order?
Just oh my god, I actually pigged out. My friend got me the works. He got what is it? The 4x4, I think they call it.
4x4.
Yeah, it's like 4 patties, 4 cheese slices, and then
Oh shit!
animal style with the fries and a shake, and it was oh
Damn,
my
that
god.
sounds good.
I
didn't
don't know
they
how
did
I
that.
didn't. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't puke, but I ate it almost all of it, and then yeah, I kind of blacked out for the rest of the night. I think I drank a lot. I don't know, but we didn't do much. We just like played video games, watched anime. Pretty much what we do on any other day. And then the next
As long
day,
as you enjoy it, bro.
yeah, it was fun. And then the next day, like they felt bad, which they shouldn't have. You know, it was like not their fault. It was just the situation. But they were like, "Oh, we didn't get to do anything. We just drove around and got canceled everywhere we went. So why don't we just like get some drinks?" And they got me some nice like cognac, and
Oh shit.
yeah, that was nice. And then what did we do? We smoked a ton of weed, and yeah, same stuff. Watched some movies and chilled. Yeah, it was cool.
Dude, that's what's up. I mean,
Mhm.
that's a chill time, man. Sounds better than my day.
Yeah, it was fun. You know, I can't wait to like go out, and who knows when things will be like some semblance of normal again. I'm starting to get like stir crazy.
Yeah.
It's been like almost a year. Yeah, it's trippy.
Yeah, next month is gonna be like a year since. Are we gonna like throw a party or what? Like, do we stay indoors?
It feels like it's almost in poor taste, but at this point, how could you not? Right? It's just like, come on, like
And with the UK strain coming in too, it's just another.
I've heard of so many different strains now. It's just like, how many are there? I don't even know how
And
often.
does the vaccine fight all of those? or-
Right, like what source of information is there on this? I don't even know if the CDC has anything on this, or if we're supposed to be 100% sure that they're even accurate.
Yeah. And well, now Fauci's saying you got to wear 2 masks.
Yeah, and
And I see a lot of people doing it too.
yeah, I see people doing
Like,
3.
I want him to tell people to drink dog piss and see how many people do it.
It's just at this point, it's like people will just do almost anything if they think it'll work, right? And I get it too. It's like if you told me that I had to drink dog piss and then everything would be fine, we could go
there,
back
there
to
would
normal.
be a Reddit like which breed.
Right, for sure. If there isn't already one. There's, I, dude, it's a crazy time. I never thought it would happen. And now that we're stuck in it, it's like, what could happen next? You know, I hear people talking about the next pandemic, and I'm like, please, God, no. I don't know if I can handle that. Who knows?
hmm Well, I mean, like, it's just funny to see how many things are just going weirdly and oddly. And for example, like right now with Texas, I actually talked to my buddy. I was like, "Hey, man, are you all right?" Because for those listening right now, or for those who don't know, like Texas is having a snowstorm, and it's not that crazy of a snowstorm considered for other places. But the thing is, their infrastructure is not made for it, and they
Right.
don't have plows, they don't have salt, they're not equipped to fight against it to clear the roads and everything. So it's just when the snow melts, it just freezes over and it stays there. And gets even more dangerous because now it's ice. And I was talking to a friend of mine who was there because I was like, "Hey man, are you all right?" And he's like, "Yeah, dude. Fortunately, my apartment is attached to the fire department, and police department's power grid, which is separate to the city's. So he's perfectly fine with electricity. But there's other people who are suffering. Like I was reading stories on Reddit. Like if for the people listening, if you go to the Austin Reddit page, man, there's so many horror stories. I heard. I saw. Huh?
Aye. That sounds rough. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I read a story that this couple was in their apartment with no power, electricity, and no gas, right? So they said, "Hey, is there like an issue with the gas or anything?" To their apartment managers, and they're like, "We think there might be an issue because there's no gas. Like, what's going on?" But the meter was going off or something.
Mm.
And so then they tell the fire department, like, "Oh, we'll check it out later." It's like right now we're only taking emergencies. It's like a gas issue isn't an emergency. It's like, well, it's not an immediate emergency because they don't know if it's really going on or not.
I see.
Because everybody could be out of gas, or because the power lines and all these other things are also out. People's pipelines are popping. But anyways, they look out the window after like I don't know, few minutes, and they see water pouring, right? And they're like, "What the heck?" So they go upstairs and they like knock on the neighbor's door, and they hear like him saying something, but then they stop hearing him saying something. So the boyfriend knocks down the door, and they find the guy, and he was like knocking out to carbon monoxide poisoning.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then the water was because the pipes had bursted from the cold.
Gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
What?
And so the water was just pouring. So this guy was just freezing and like falling asleep to death.
Well, that's one way to go. Jeez.
Yeah, but they rescued him. Yeah, and then
Wonder
they
if he
told
was pissed.
well, the good thing is they told the fire department, and then it became an immediate emergency. But because there's so many emergencies,
Oh, really? So that's
took
what
like
it
20
took.
minutes.
Oh shit.
Yeah, yeah. But it took them 20 minutes to respond just because of how many emergencies they were dealing with. It's just ridiculous, man. Like
Yeah.
just because
Who would have thought Texas? Yeah.
yeah, well their infrastructure's like they didn't want to change it just so then they don't have to regulate it,
Right.
you know, and because of that it's like old, you know, it's like some Soviet shit.
That's
So it broke down,
yeah.
you know, and now they're asking for money for a bailout.
Oh boy, Texas of all places.
Yeah. Well, I saw people are pretty angry, especially even with the governor
Mm.
and his response to it too.
Yeah.
You know, and how he's like trying to shove the blame of other people or saying, "Oh no, it wasn't me." Like this isn't, you know, even though he's supporting the infrastructure and wants to keep it, he's like, "I was not a failure of it."
He's pretty popular too, from what I understand. Which so this must put a damper on that. That's unfortunate.
Mhm.
Yeah. I wonder when is he up for re-election? Who knows if he is? I'd have to look into that. But for Texas to be that in turmoil at this point over the weather is kind of crazy. Like with everything else going on.
Mm-hmm. And man, going back to the Valentine's Day, man, mine was the trip.
Yeah. How was your Valentine's Day?
Well, like, let's set this up first, because it was we had been talking about Valentine's Day, about what to do for a couple of weeks, maybe 2 weeks, and I was just like, well, I don't know what's gonna be open. I don't know, like, if most of the stuff's gonna be first come first serve, you know, or maybe some reservations.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up saying like, oh, well, I have a reservation at Downtown Disney. And I'm like, but that's like last resort. And I'm like, yo, I'm totally down to do that. She loves Disney. To go to Downtown Disney, it'll be fun for her in Anaheim. It'll be cool. And then we can get some Canes. Have you ever had Canes?
Like candy canes?
No, it's Canes raisin chicken or something.
Oh. I was like,
Man,
what?
it's like
No.
Popeyes, but on steroids, bro. It's so
Ah.
good, man.
Okay.
Yeah, but they have it in Anaheim. It's like the closest one here in LA.
Mm.
But anyways, I was like, okay, that sounds like a good plan to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before that, her birthday was a few days before.
Mm.
So I got her a Polaroid camera and a birthday card, and I was like, hey, like, this is your gift, you know? Like, this is it.
Nice.
And she was like, well, I want a card for Valentine's Day. And I was like, like, and we're always here together because we're living in a studio, so it's like pretty small.
Mm.
And so it's hard to get cards and stuff. So I was like, I think I did my dues, and I'm gonna take her out to Downtown Disney, and we're gonna eat at this restaurant for lunch, and it's gonna be super nice. And then later for dinner, we can go out somewhere. And we end up going to Downtown Disney to like this jazz place or jazz themed restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And everything's super good. The food was really good. I got the salmon. She got salmon. It was super awesome. The bill was pretty pricey, and I paid for it. All good.
Naturally.
Yeah, all good. Left a good tip. Everything's all, and she was a good waitress, thankfully. And
Sweet, yeah.
yeah. And so then she gives me a card, like telling me how much she cares about me, and a little like guitar pick with a picture of us together. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, like that's nice. It's like, what'd you get me? I was like, I didn't get you anything. I'm like, well, like we're here. I paid for the meal. Like she's like, oh, and then she starts freaking out, being like, no, like this is like a day for us. Like, why didn't you get me anything? It shows me that you don't care. All this stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I brought you here. I'm like, I'm gonna get you some balloons. We're gonna be hanging out. Like, we can get a pretzel or like a churro. Like, we can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
you know?
like it's you're taking her out, you're treating her.
Yeah,
It's an
and
experience.
it's like one of her favorite
yeah.
places. I'm like, yeah.
Does that
but-
not count? Like, is that just a given? Like, come on.
Yeah, she wanted me to give it more thought, and I'm like, what? And I'm like,
I mean, a card, sure, that's nice, but do you really need the card? Like, you got her a birthday card like 2 days prior, right? Like,
mhm.
she wants an
a
extra
few days
card.
prior, yeah.
I mean, sure. Yeah, I feel like if you just text her or something like, Happy Valentine's Day or something, is that any different from? I don't know. You can make nice gifts now that are way cooler than cards.
Yeah, but I mean, we did so much other stuff,
yeah,
but
it's like it's.
yeah, it was just her freaking. I was just like, whoa, what the heck? But it put a damper on everything and put the trip just spiral
Right,
downhill.
yeah, why not just
like, very
enjoy the
quickly.
day, right?
Yeah, but apparently she did say that she got a little emotional because she got fired from Disney.
Mm,
So when she was there, it was like it like holds a special place in her heart. So it kind of like
for
triggered
sure,
her, I
yeah.
guess.
I could see that. Yeah, that's hard to, not relate to, right?
Mhm. So I mean that was tough, man. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it ended up pretty nicely because we ended up going out to like dinner at this like at Flame Broilers, which is pretty
Ooh.
good. Yeah, and it was just super chill. It ended up like we watched like The Shining, and
The
she ended up
Shining.
happy. She ended up happy. She'd never seen it, and I was like,
Really?
okay,
Oh, wow. Good choice
yeah,
then. Yeah.
yeah. So it was all good in the end. But I mean, I don't know. I was like, hey, like, was I in the wrong? That's the question. Leave a comment.
Right. I mean, from my perspective, there's no right or wrong there. It's everyone's subjective, right? But if that's really what she wanted, then now you know for the future, right?
That's what
There
I
you
said
go.
to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like, now I know.
Yeah.
Fucked up, but
It
I
was
know
the
now.
first Valentine's Day, right? So
Mm-hmm.
there you go. Yeah. But then now she knows, maybe it's not something you take for granted either, that you always go out and have a nice dinner experience. Like,
Yeah.
it's something to appreciate too, right?
Mm-hmm. But what have you been doing with your investments and stuff, man? Because we're always talking about investments, especially because Wall Street bets.
Yeah, you were actually telling me about the South Africa.
Oh yeah, somebody
That
on
might be
Reddit, which
interesting, too.
it was pretty interesting. Was so South Africa, they're having crazy inflation. They're like their government and infrastructure is basically fake. Like they'll hire anybody to be a police officer, like people who've never fired a gun. They'll hire people who can't read to be teachers. Like it's like a fake system, and their inflation's like 4.2% or something. It's like ridiculous, and they keep pumping money into nothing. And it seems like they're basically eating themselves alive. So Wall Street Bets, someone posted saying like, "Hey, all this stuff that I just said, plus they said like let's short the country of South Africa. Like let's bet against their economy and bet that they're gonna be ruined. And if they do, then we get a lot of money."
Dude, if this goes the way of like, how like some countries, like $1 billion of their dollars is like one of our dollars. Like if that ends up happening, I can only imagine these people are gonna profit tremendously.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as the inflation rate stays stable, I think here it was like 1.2%. As long as it stays relatively stable, then South Africa continues at their rate, if not even more,
What if South Africa has like a Silicon Valley kind of leap?
I mean, even the most famous one is like Elon Musk, and he left.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Elon Musk moves back to South Africa to fuck with the shorters. That would be right up his alley, I feel like, but who knows?
But yeah, so that was interesting to read. I was just like, man, maybe this is actually a good investment to short it, I don't know. This seems like
interesting.
You got to talk to a broker and like figure this out.
For sure. Yeah, dude, I'm in the midst of switching over to Fidelity from Robinhood, and it's a pain in the behind, I'll tell you.
Why is that? Can you explain for people people who don't use Robinhood or?
So Fidelity is just more trusted. It seems like a better app. Robinhood's just a little more user friendly, maybe, but there's no support, and they'll sell your info. They'll restrict your trading, as we learned with the whole GameStop, AMC
Fiasco.
Reddit fiasco. Yeah, there you go. that was really something for the history books. But I think we spoke about that a bit before. It's just, I feel safer and I trust Fidelity more. So I want to switch over to them, but it's a $75 fee to switch over completely, which at this point, I feel like I might just give in the $75 and just be like, fuck it, move on. Because it's taking me a long time to liquidate everything and get it at a good price and switch it over to Fidelity within the like time constraints that they have. It's annoying. It's like, why am I even paying for premium at this point, right? Which is another thing, is do I want to keep like a premium service? Do I want a real broker, or do I want an app where I can just do everything myself? It's becoming a whole question. And for a lot of people, I think they're asking the same questions, right? Like,
well, it's very interesting to see a generation of people with no money who are in student debt and like living with their
Investing their
parents.
stimulus checks.
Yeah, investing. No, just and being savvy about this stuff,
Yeah.
and like being financially savvy and being like, you know what? Because it's like when you look at like Robinhood, it's like you're giving this tool to people. Like I've never in my life seen it so easy to buy and trade stocks in my
Yeah,
life
that's-
with this app. You know, it's giving the utility to anybody, literally anybody, to just come right in. And if you invite a friend, you get a stock. Like my brother got like an Apple stock. You know.
Right. Which is I was always like on board. I was always touting Robinhood. I've, introduced many people to the app and used it constantly. Like I have their debit card. But then they go and do what they did, and it's like, not only do you sell the information, right, but you
And just to
restrict the
explain, just to
trading.
recap, just to explain to people what they did.
So people tried to do similar to what you're saying, a short South Africa, but in this case, it was GameStop, AMC, Nokia.
They were
similar-
betting on GameStop failing as a company.
Exactly, shorting a stock in the sense that they're betting on it doing poorly in the future and, making a profit off of that. And when people like you or me apparently try to short something, that's a bad thing. So they put a tamper on that. The SEC ended up having to get involved because they restricted public trading on a free market stock, and that's a big illegal no. That's something you're not supposed to do. And the fact that Robinhood did that implies that they would rather pay huge fines, right? Probably millions of dollars, if not more.
Well, they would have had I think the issue is they would have had to put so much money into just throwing it into the system.
Exactly. They would
You
rather
know?
pay those fines than pay the shorts
Mm-hmm.
that they were
Yeah,
obliged
because
to
it's
pay.
a ridiculous
cover their
amount
bets.
of millions of dollars within a
probably
short
in-
amount
yeah.
of time.
They would have lost billions, I think, on the GameStop, Nokia, etc. shorts, all the
AMC,
AMC,
mhm.
yeah, all that stuff. BlackBerry, I think, was one of the silver.
Yeah.
It was like a lot of things, yeah. And Wall Street Bets and Reddit, in contrast, have blown up, and because I feel like they're profiting off of this in a certain way for sure, which is something no one's really addressed. I feel like.
I feel that. And so what's up with the process right now? Going back to that with Fidelity, like
So-
what's so difficult about it? Because I remember you telling me about
Just doing it all manually, it's very you have to liquidate your holdings, and you're trying to find the right price, and then there's like a wait period before you can transfer it either to your bank, and then from the bank to Fidelity, or if you have like an instant deposit set up that you just take it out of your paycheck. It becomes like a thing where there's like a wait period, and when your profit is based on particular timings, right? And you don't have a
you
lot of
want
free
it
time,
now,
yeah. That's why it becomes much easier to just pay $75 and have someone just transfer everything manually, right, themselves, rather than you do it yourself manually. The automation is better, I feel like. But it's like, do I really want to pay them $75 after, wanting to switch over because of the poor service? Do I really want to give them more money? But
And how do you think this affects stocks in the sense of like, you look at the S&P 500, which is a very popular stock, which is some sort of like algorithm or something that somehow takes
I
stocks of
wouldn't call
every
it an
company. or a
algorithm.
certain-
Yeah, it's a committee. There's a committee
or a
that
committee?
chooses. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there's several different tickers for the. When I say several, there's probably hundreds of different S&P like ETFs with different holdings and weights, and they're generally very good benchmarks for the market and just very good places to put your money. But they haven't been as solid in their performance lately, right? Because there's market volatility, there's a pandemic, there's a new president, like everything's all over the place lately. So people don't really know what to expect. And that's both good and bad, right? You have huge room for profit and huge room for loss, especially people who are doing options
Mhm.
betting or borrowing on margin or any of these risky strategies that come with, investing in things like stocks. And
Do you feel that like this is getting me thinking about how like seeing how risky everything is right now because you're putting like everything's
a lot
up
of
in the
people
air.
don't understand the risk.
But I feel so many people because looking at GameStop, looking at all these things that people are willing to take that risk.
Yeah,
and
and
it seems like
for-
a lot more people are inclined
For sure,
to be
yeah.
like, oh, there's a risk, like they want to gamble it, like they like that. Like I feel like it's like
And
inclination.
It's
to
a
do
word
it.
you just said. Yeah, gambling is a lot of this because people don't take the time to do the research, to look at the earnings reports, to listen to the conference calls, to like look at the actual math, look at the earnings per share, look at the volume. Like there's a lot of information. You can look at the candle charts or whatever sort of information you need to make an educated decision, right? But even if you have all that information, if you don't know what to make of it, right? How much better off are you, right? So that's where a broker can really come in and help people. But can everyone afford a broker? Can everyone, spare the time to talk to one? And it becomes like another chore, right? That's why automation is so useful. And they kind of trap you in this system where you have all this information, you don't know what to do with it, but you feel like you do. So you make like what you think is an educated guess, and you're kind of becoming trapped in riskier and riskier investments because you think you know what you're doing. Because you see all this information and you're like, oh, I know what I'm doing because I made this and this happen. And you
Hmm.
think it's going to keep going along that track. And I've seen that happen to a lot of people.
And now that I'm studying like programming and stuff, I see a lot of people that make a lot of algorithms for these systems and try to sell them to big companies. So, do you know anything about that type of thing?
Yeah, there's definitely like I just watched a podcast with Lex Friedman where he talked to someone who was an expert on the subject. I forget his name. But he's actually building a whole app and I think service based around uh
But
it's like a smart algorithm AI program that tracks the market, right? And does all your investing for you. But in exchange, it takes all your investing information and sells that. And that's how they make their money.
sounds like acorns to me.
Sort of, right? But much larger scale, right? They'll do all your investing in any form, but they take all this information, they encrypt it, and then they just put it out for everyone. So anyone can make a tool for it and just parse that information and make of it what they will, right? Which
How
is
so?
both good and bad. His whole conversation was lengthy and nuanced, but the gist of it that I got was there's a lot of potential here for people to do both good and bad. There's so much information, but it's all encrypted, right? So you don't know who's doing what transaction where, but you can see trends, you can see patterns, and that's very useful and powerful information that people want to get their hands on,
Mhm.
especially financial institutions, hedge funds, investing firms, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, man. And how do you feel like when it comes to people's outlook towards this type of stuff? Like how do you feel the common people are like looking at all this stuff? Are they just like, well,
I think that we're currently going through something that feels like another depression, right? And I haven't been through one necessarily. I've been through a few big busts, right? There was the financial crisis in '08. There was
2008? Yeah.
in the 18 real estate crash. There was a few like big dips, right? Now a pandemic, and there was also like things like Y2K, swine flu, Ebola. Like we've been through similar things, but never at this scale all at once happening at the
Mhm.
same time. This kind of feels like the new, I don't want to say industrial revolution, but almost in a way it's like a financial revolution. People are taking the reins on their own investments and their finances, and it's very cool to see everyone trying to enlighten themselves. At least it seems that's the trend that people are kind of going after. It's like maybe I should know where my money's going and how to grow it and what this means and
Mhm.
etc.
It's crazy to me still that people don't teach this shit in school.
I wish they did, right? Like this is some stuff that you don't need to be an investment banker to know what earnings are, right? Or like
Dividends.
dividends, right? Or options or any of these terms. And yet like no one taught me this stuff, right? I had to Google all of it myself or
And
research all
but
of it
that's the thing
myself. Yeah.
is you can Google it.
You can Google it. And this is why Google kind of has, I don't even want to say use this word, but I don't use it lightly. They have a monopoly on the information. I mean, there's Bing, right? But who's going to use Bing? DuckDuckGo, right? You have
Mhm.
options, but you're always going to go back to Google. And
Pretty much, yeah.
yeah, so that's probably a whole conversation in and of itself, right? Like you do all your shopping probably at Amazon, right? You
Mhm.
do all your searches at Google, and everyone gets their phones from probably Apple or Samsung. It's like there's these monopolies that are popping up, and something there needs to be a conversation about that, right? But I think we got into that a little bit too. I probably ranted about that for a little
Mhm.
while, but yeah, I think it's definitely something that people overlook, and they just kind of like because it's so easy, right, and helpful. They just kind of overlook it, but it can be. I don't think it's a good idea to let anything ever get too big, right? But
Well, talking about like things that are like growing in tech, at least when it comes to getting too big. You just showed me you showed me it before, but I got an actual good look at it. Your new phone, you got the like 8K video camera, like
Yeah, the
Samsung phone,
Samsung. What is it?
and that's Android, right? So that's Google.
Yes, exactly.
And the thing is that I was telling you as soon as we started talking about it was, one thing because I have Apple. It's like one thing I like about Apple is they really protect, or I'm not gonna say they really protect it, but they try to protect your privacy. And you as having a Google phone, like they're taking all of that stuff and selling it or doing whatever they can with it.
Right.
Seeing where you are, where you like to visit, see how to market to you, whatever. All that data goes out there with all those cookies that they have to gather that data to make basically a portfolio for you.
Right. And I've had friends and family who have had both phones, right? So I've kind of seen the full spectrum, and there's definitely have been more security concerns with the Android phones. So that's for sure no joke, right? Like Apple doesn't fuck around when it comes to safety, security, privacy, that kind of thing. But at the same time, Google is I just like Google better. So I'll take the little security concerns, because to me they're little. It's like once in a while.
Isn't that funny though, that we're willing to sacrifice like
it's a scary
our
thought.
privacy
It's a scary thought
for value? It's like, if this has value to me, then I'm willing to sacrifice this.
Right, but
isn't that a little weird?
It's more than a little weird. It's eerie at times when I'll say
because you're saying that as to me, I'm like, yo, this guy's under the spell.
If I say a certain word combination, my Google phone will turn on and start listening to everything I'm saying if it's not already listening before I say that, right? Who's to say?
Mm-hmm.
And it must be to know that I'm saying, hey Google or whatever. And then it's scary at times. You'll be like talking to someone about something, and then an ad will show up on your phone, right? Immediately of that thing.
Right.
Who's to say where that information is being stored, how it's being processed, what it's being used for, who it's being sold to? There's a lot of factors at play. And for one company to have all that power and information.
So why give up that privacy, that free, or give up your liberties for what's so valuable to you that it has? That's like you don't get from any other
here's
phone.
The thing. Do you use the Siri function on your iPhone?
No.
Okay, I use the Google function constantly. I'll be like asking it for facts or data or the weather or like to do this or that for me. So I use the automation feature, the assistant they call it.
Right.
And it's constantly improving and getting better, and it makes my life so much easier. But at the same time, I know it's taking all that information and using it for who knows what. So it's a double-edged sword, right? On the one hand, like everything's easier, but on the other hand, it's like at what ends, right? What are the means to that end?
Well, why not use Siri? Why not just
do it? It's just not as good. It's not bad. It helps. It works, but it's just less efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably because they're not using all of your data to like build off of, but that's the cost, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's really like, which one's more important to you?
The ease of use or
exactly.
Having your privacy. Because I have one friend that he programs and codes for like a military company, but he got what was it? He showed me this one crazy phone. I wish I knew the name, but nothing popular, and it's like completely. It runs on what's it? The one with the penguin on it? Is it Java?
The pink one? What?
The programming software with the penguin on it. I forgot what it's called.
Oh, Penguin. Like Linux, Ubuntu.
Yeah, it's with Linux.
Okay,
there we go.
yeah.
So it runs off Linux. So everything is private. Everything's secure. So for him, like he doesn't have any social media, anything. He tries to keep his stuff very private, very secured.
That's smart. Yeah, these days, like I recommend people use. There's a system called Tails. It's probably. It's hard to explain, but it's you can make compartmentalized operating systems that run independent of anything that you can track, and people are getting into the whole secure encrypted transmission of communication.
But you know what's funny? When I talked to him about it, I had the same response as you, basically, in a way, because I said, yeah, it's like it'd be nice to have that privacy, but it's like I want to have all my apps.
Yeah.
I want to have all my iPhone apps because I like my apps that I have. They're easy to use, and I have a MacBook. Everything's connected.
Exactly.
So it's just convenience. That's literally I sacrifice my privacy for convenience.
Yeah, and I think that's a line we're all tiptoeing these days, right? It's like how much are you willing to step over that line if it just makes your life a little bit easier?
Hmm.
And it's something we need to be wary of and constantly monitoring, right? You don't want to go too far over that line and then Big Brother, right? But
But that's
every
what I'm saying
day,
is how far is it gonna go?
every day it feels like we're a little bit closer, right?
Yeah, like
Like
what if you're like a Deus Ex Machina or like Cyberpunk, where it's just like your whole body is augmented with like different pieces and shit,
you
and
think
then
we'll see that in our lifetimes? I
I
wonder
don't.
about that.
I think we'll start seeing the beginning of it in our lifetime, but I don't
Right?
think we'll
Like
see the full integration of it. I think what we're gonna see in our lifetime is gonna be augmented reality.
oh, for sure. I think we're already seeing that,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
The new VR is crazy.
yeah, but not even VR, just like glasses that you can like see shit.
Augmented, right?
Like
Overlays and yeah.
yeah, like tell you like, oh, this is this person,
What do
and
you
like,
think
oh,
of
you like if it's connected to your phone, like, oh, these people have Facebook. It's like, oh, this guy has Facebook. This guy has Facebook. Like, oh, I can see where
right?
they were, or
Like
like,
a
oh,
heads
this
up
person likes
display.
this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, let me see. Like, even like if it has like a little bio, it's like, oh, I like this person. I want to go talk to
Like
him.
the
Or
Google Glass
they'll
kind of
judge
thing,
you type
but
of
like
thing.
better.
Who knows what it'll be? It could be like that one Black Mirror episode where
They're amazing. Yeah.
yeah, where they have that lady that's just trying to get likes to up her rating and shit. And that's
Right,
all
which
she cares about. And then
it's-
your augmented reality like
What
just
do you
shows
think
your
of
rating.
that situation in China? Is basically reality, right? Where everyone has a social credit score and
Oh,
it
yeah.
determines, their livelihood.
It's fucked, man. I don't like that because to me, I want to have that private to an extent. Because, for example, like when I was like if you look at me on paper, for example, I look super clean, right?
Mhm.
But then if I try to apply for like a police officer, then I look very dirty.
Right.
Right,
If
but
someone
it's like,
runs the
hey, I'm
full-
not a
yeah.
bad person. I'm not gonna try to hurt somebody. But it's like, oh, do you smoke weed? Yes. It's like, okay, well, now we can't have you.
Right? It's crazy how that's a determinant there. It's like, wouldn't you be maybe a better? You know what I mean? It
Nah, I
could
gotta
be-
beat people up, bro.
Like, do you really want someone to
just
be
kidding.
a peace officer if
I
they've never
I support
worked?
the police. I support Derek Chauvin.
I mean-
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
If you can't hit a bong, I mean, come on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? Joe Rogan is something he said that I completely agree with is if you can't smoke weed at your job, you probably have a shitty job.
It's a good point. But at the same time, there's some jobs that are like very intense, right? That are probably really good jobs, right? But you can't smoke weed doing them.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably can't smoke weed and do rocket science, but that sounds like it would be a very awesome job.
I think you can do that. I think a surgery would be more like don't smoke weed.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure Elon Musk probably gets high and
Yeah.
does rocket science. but
Yeah,
who
I feel
knows?
that. I think Elon Musk does.
He might be.
Yeah, that's what made him say like, "What if we shot a car into space?"
Oh my God.
That's literally what he thought when he just smoked a blunt with Brogan. Was like, "Let's shoot a car to space."
Make it pointier too. That was his whole podcast is. I need to get a poster of Elon Musk and Joe Rogan smoking that blunt. That's
Yeah, people have done murals of that thing, man.
yeah. That's what a great
legendary.
moment. Legendary for sure.
Legendary. But what else has there been in your life going on, man? What else have you been doing, like focusing on anything? Because something like last time we spoke and hung out that caught me, off guard that you do is you mod a lot and make money off modding. Like people pay you to mod or like modify a video game, specifically the video game called Skyrim.
Yeah.
And so like
that's-
what's up with that, man? Like if somebody were to want to do that, if they were to want to program, like I thought that was interesting because I'm like, oh, that's like a little side gig you can have and have a little more income. So I'm like, what's this entail?
It's not too difficult if you've got the free time, and I feel like a lot of people have free time nowadays. But all you have to do is go online, look up. I recommend the Nexus. Right, there's a Nexus for it's a forum where you could go mod Skyrim or Witcher or Dragon Age or whatever game like Fallout. There's tons of games, and you can download what's called an SDK. It's software that they use to build the game, and you can use that to modify the game. People can create like their own followers, houses, levels, enemies, like, you name it. With Skyrim, you can start delving into that really easily. You download the software, lots of guides out there. People will help you on the community. Is very, very helpful. And
How
that's
do you reach
that's how I
this
started.
community through that website?
Yeah, it's called the Nexus, and I forget the exact address, but if you just Google Nexus / whatever game, you'll find it. And they're just the best. And you can go on there and start your own account, create your own mods, upload them, share them. People will see them and download them, and you don't even need to say if you don't have a PayPal address or anything, Venmo, whatever, however you would get donations. You can have a system on the site where the more downloads you get, right, the more points you earn, and with those points you can redeem them for credit or games or membership points for like faster download and upload speed, etc. It comes with a lot of perks, so I like the site a lot. I like the community, and getting into it is very easy if you can find the time and you have like a knack for c- looking at technical information like meshes, check textures, that kind of stuff. If you're doing game data, it's a lot of visual data because it's a video game, right? So there's audio files and things like that. But it's not difficult. The only tedious part is figuring out what order to put the things in, because when you're dealing with a lot of mods, they can all conflict.
And do you have to download any sort of programming language or any sort of thing to read that programming language?
Not necessarily, but it depends on what you're doing. So that's kind of where I come in, and like the community comes in. There's lots of experienced veteran modders. I'd say I'm more on the intermediate level, but there's some really like legendary people out there who will take the time to like sit down and write you up a message and be like, "This is how you do this. This is how you do that. This is the order you do it in." So, for example, with Skyrim, right? You could download 100 mods, throw them into your mm, game files, and hope for the best, right? But you're gonna have crashes. You're gonna have issues. If you want to do it right, you need to download certain tools that'll help you like put everything in its right place so it all plays nicely together. No crashes, no glitches,
Mhm.
etc. So there's one tool called Loot, right, which is like load order optimization tool, which is amazing, and it's had a few predecessors and similar things. It'll help you put everything in its right order for the most part, and then maybe you tweak it a little bit to get everything playing nicely. And then there's things like patches you can make with different things like there's a ton of them. Mod organizer is amazing. You can use it to just organize and tag information. I could go on for days, honestly. There's like extractors, compilers, image and audio tweakers. The tools are endless. The problem is finding the right ones, knowing how to use them in what order, and that's where the community really comes in.
And what have you done as a modder, and how were you starting to make like income off of it? Because how does this people just download your mod? How do they find it? What is all this?
So my niche, I guess, would be like I make follower mods and I do some tweaks where I can take a mod someone has already made, not any mod per se, but just like certain ones that fit within a category, and make a tiny change, like add a flag to it, right? That would make it not take up space in your order, because you can only have in regular Skyrim like about 250 mods, but with this little tweak, you can put potentially thousands, right? As long as you know what you're doing again. And the more mods you have, the more potential there is for errors, right? So you want to use a modicum of self-restraint and, do I really need this? Do I really want this? What complements this playstyle, etc. And you can have
Mhm.
different, orders for different playthroughs. Like I have one that's kind of like Star Wars themed and one that's like Dark Souls, but I digress. So where I come in is like I'll do little flag edits, or I could take a mod and optimize it for Skyrim Special Edition, which is like a 64-bit version, whereas the old Skyrim, or old RIM, as it's lovingly called, is like a 32-bit system, so it's a little bit older, right? Everything runs a little bit differently. There's less scripts involved, but the community is always evolving, and there's new blood always coming in. Like there's now Skyrim VR, which is amazing. It's a whole new world out there. Like the things people can do with the VR mods is a whole nother
How
level.
so?
I haven't even tipped my toes into that, but I've seen some of the stuff they can do. Like I've played some of it too, but it's very hard to get that going because it's a lot more nuanced, and you're basically in a virtual world, right? You're interacting with things around you and moving them without a controller that you're pressing buttons, and you know what I mean? It's more movement oriented. So it's a lot more, there's a lot more room for shenanigans, because Skyrim is a famously like shenanigan prone game. Things go haywire all the time because there's all these crazy, very very detailed physics. There's all these things to interact with. There's just so many factors going on in your game at any one time that if you just like wave your hand, right? There's so many different things that could happen. If you just touch this one thing or just swat it across the room, right? You could set off a whole chain reaction, which is pretty amazing for a game
Huh.
that's like 10 years old.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, being kept alive literally by the community.
Yeah, and every day more people come in, you know. You see new mods every day that you're like, "Oh, I wish I'd thought of this 10 years ago." Or something along those lines. Like people are still making new animations, new enemies, new just new
And people just pay for these, or they
dialogue.
just
Yeah.
donate.
Both. Like there's some people that will pre-package everything and then sell that, which is both a good thing and a bad thing because people who make the mods don't benefit from that per se, right? But the person who packages it all together does.
Oh,
So
that's
that's
messed up.
right. Yeah, that's a huge debate in the community, right? A lot of people have left the community because of that. Is it right for these people to profit off of like making their work easier to
Yeah, especially
process?
when it's like free.
Yeah, but at the same
From the
time, that
beginning.
stuff is a lot more prone to error too, because people will just download that and not know what they're doing, and they won't learn anything,
Mhm.
and then they don't know how to troubleshoot. And they're like, "Hey, the thing you gave me is fucked up, or the thing you sold me." In which case, right?
Right.
But they don't know exactly the level of support they'll get, and there's only so much support one person can give, right? If they have a very popular mod, eventually they're gonna burn out, which I've seen happen time and time again. So there needs to be like a team effort, a community effort, and that's really where like some of the big mods shine is they have like a whole group of people working as a backbone to keep it going and keep improving and stay fresh, and that's been amazing to see. It's like there's a whole like economy and uh everything there is like self-sustaining in a way because it's the people that love to play the games support the developers and the developers keep the gamers going and coming back and
It's funny to see just how many different communities there are. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
there's
Just
so many levels.
yeah, but it's crazy to hear that. Definitely something to look into.
Yeah, and once you start to like learn what other modders are like, it's really interesting. They're so diverse, just people from all walks of life. Like I've made friends with people from all over the world, many different languages, cultures, religions, you
Damn.
name it. It's been eye-opening, honestly, and you never really meet them person to person, right? It's all online, but you see a side of them that most people don't in their daily life. Because who else mods, right?
Hmm.
It's been an interesting experience.
Well, man, I think that's a good note to end on, bro. That's what's up.
Sounds good.
Well, man, thanks again, Eli, for joining me, bro. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No problem. Peace.